Hey creatives, I've got an art journal process video for you today using some very simple techniques for building texture with acrylic paints. Now today I'm going to use the Amsterdam standard acrylic paints. Now I've been playing around with these over the last couple of weeks, and thank you ever so much everybody who's been feeding back and telling me how you're getting on with these paints. Now I bought myself some nozzle adapters for them, so if you're sitting there thinking, oh, they look different from my bottles, that's why. And I thought I'd try those out and see how they work, and I really like them like this actually. So I would definitely recommend using nozzle adapters. Of course, there's a link to everything that I've used today down in the description and below this video. So the page I'm working on is a page from my junk journal, and it already has some paint on it. It's acrylic paint from another project, so it just caught my eye, so I thought I'd work on it. So if you've watched my 12 tips video, then you'll know that I like using a palette knife. It's a really great expressive way of getting paint onto a page. But if you don't have one, just use a plastic card, something like that. Palette knives are good because you can get a lot of control out of them, and they come in different shapes and sizes, as I'm sure you know. So you can make some different marks with them, which is fun. So for my first layer, I'm just applying some thin and thick areas of the paint and then stamping into it. I then let that paint layer dry and add some white paint over the top. And the white paint's from a different brand because I only have 3 of the Amsterdam colours at the moment. So I'm just going to add my layers bit by bit. For these early layers, I'm not being too careful. I'm not really worried about where I'm putting the paint. I'm just trying to build up some texture, and I'm also trying to cover up some of what's already on the page. Not necessarily the colour, but say some of the chunkier areas of dark print, like the photograph. Once I've added this white layer and also done a bit of stamping into it to add some more texture, then I'm going to let that dry and move on to my third layer. Now for my third layer, I'm also going to use areas of thick and thin, but this time I'm also going to scrape back a little bit more so we can see that lovely white shining through, and that adds a really great texture too. So the stamps I've been using so far, they're ones that I actually carved myself. And I do have a couple of videos on stamp carving if you've missed those, so I'll link those up in the description below. But you could use any texture stamp that you've got. Now just remember that when you do use them with acrylic paint, you want to get them washed quickly afterwards. These ones I'm not particularly bothered about, but if I was, what I usually do is I spray them with water to keep the paint wet, and then after I finish my session, I'll give them a good wash. So again, I've let that layer dry before moving on to my next layer, and for this layer I'm just going to use a little bit of this beautiful turquoise green colour to add some contrast. Now this time I'm going to be a bit more measured about where I put it and how I put it on the page, as you'll see. Now I have been working on 2 pages at the same time for this, but I'm actually going to focus on the right hand page. So this is going to be a single page spread. But it does also mean that I'll have another page started for a different project. So my left hand page still looks a bit random, and I'm not thinking about where the colour goes and what I'm doing on that page as such, but the right hand side you can definitely see that I've got an idea of how I want to finish this in my head, and there's some elements of design going on now. But this is the first layer that started to happen. Because what I want to do is add this lovely stamp, and this is going to be my focal point. So this is one of Trish Latimer's stamps, and you'll find a link to her in the description below. So this is one of StarTrish Design's Wordgirl series, which is great for me because if you watched my Dragonfly art journal, you know that I kind of have a problem with words. I find it quite hard to add words and sentiments to art journals. It's kind of my Achilles heel. So this one, I don't need to worry about it because there's already words there. But before I put her down, I want her to really stand out from this journal page, and she's very similar colours. I've already coloured her with Prismacolor pencils, so to make her stand out, I'm just going to add a little layer of white paint behind her. So I'm taking a little bit of time to making sure that it is behind her. I've added that white paint quite roughly, so to just merge it and blend it into the background a little bit better, I'm just going to add a little bit of water whilst that paint's still wet, just to spread it out and make those edges a little bit smoother. And then when it's dry, I will glue her in place. So give me a shout if you'd like to see how I actually coloured her with pencils. And whilst you're at it, if you're enjoying this video and finding it useful, then please do like it and share it with anyone else you think might like it too. And a massive thank you to all my subscribers. I've reached my 2,000 mark. I'm amazed. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so the paint is now completely dry and she's dry as well, and I thought I would ground her. So rather than have her just floating freely on the page, I thought I'd just add some pen marks to give her something to stand on. It's a very simple way of doing this. And you can use paint pens, whatever you're more comfortable with. I just grabbed for a Unipin marker, and these work reasonably well on dry paint. But I've also got a piece of paper to the side to just scribble out if it starts getting a bit claggy and I need to clean off the nib. And that seems to work really well with these pens so far anyway. So the other thing I'm going to do here is add a little bit more black on this page as well, because at the moment she kind of just sticks out a bit, don't you think? She doesn't really look like she entirely lives on the page yet. And I'm going to take some of that black line style that is part of her design, and I'm just going to repeat it a little bit. Well, rather than repeat it, more reflect it in some more pen work on other areas on the page. And it's just a really simple design trick to add harmony to a page and finish it off. So I'm going to use little black lines, and I'm just going to vary the size and the width of these so they're not too uniform. And I'm going to use the other design trick, which is using odd numbers. So I'm going to do odd numbers of lines in opposing corners. So hopefully that will give the page a more finished look, and it will make her look more at home on this page. And of course it also adds more interest and texture as well. But there's nothing stopping you at all using stamping instead. So if you have stamps that you think will go well with your main focal image, then try those out. But you know me, I'm a bit of a doodler, I like to draw, so that's why I tend to grab for a pen. But there's no right and wrong way, do what's more comfortable for you. So I hope you're starting to see that you can build up lovely layers and textures and interest with only a few products. So this is handy if you're just starting out and you don't have much in your stash. But it's also handy if you're further down the line and you've got a lot in your stash. Sometimes it's just fun to pare it back and see what you can make with just a few bits and pieces. It's a great way to challenge yourself. And also maybe a great way to reacquaint yourself with products that you haven't used for a while. Or like me, for products that you're new to. So I hope you have a really creative Sunday, and I'll be back on Wednesday with a new art and craft video. So I'll see you all then. Thanks for watching. Bye!